Today, we're digging into a case that absolutely everyone was talking about, Jodi Arias. And it all boils down to one huge question. When she killed her ex-boyfriend, Travis Alexander, was it a cold, calculated murder, or was it a desperate act of survival? Let's get into it. I mean, this is the core of the whole thing, right? You have a dead man and the woman who says she did it. But the stories couldn't be more different. The prosecution said she was a jealous lover who planned the whole thing. The defense, they claim she was a terrified woman fighting for her life. The trial was basically a battle to see which story the jury would believe.
So let's start at the beginning. In the beginning isn't with their relationship. No, it's with the absolutely horrific discovery of the crime scene. Before we can even get to the why, you have to understand the what.
It's one of those things you see in movies. Travis misses a big work call, doesn't answer his phone for a few days. His friends start to worry. So they go over to his house to check on him, and what they walk into is, well, it's a scene of just unimaginable violence. 27. Let that number sink in. On top of a gunshot to the head and having his throat slit, Travis Alexander was stabbed 27 times. The medical examiner even found defensive wounds on his hands. He fought for his life. This level of brutality was just the first sign that this case was going to be anything but simple. So how in the world did things get to this point? To figure that out, we have to rewind and take a look at the incredibly volatile relationship at the center of it all. Okay, so on one hand, you've got Travis Alexander. He was a rising star at his company, really active in his church, just a super charismatic guy by all accounts. And then you have Jodi Arias, an aspiring photographer. They meet at a conference and she falls for him hard. And their relationship timeline is pretty crucial here. Look, they only officially dated for a few months, but here's the thing. It never really stopped. It just kind of morphed into this messy, on-again, off-again, long-distance sexual relationship that kept going right up until he died. And you know who was seeing all the red flags? His friends. They were seriously concerned. They told stories about her allegedly stalking him, slashing his tires, even hacking into his social media. To them, this wasn't just a bad relationship, it was toxic, and her behavior was getting dangerously obsessive. So as the police start investigating, Jodi's story starts to fall apart. And it falls apart fast, mainly because she left behind a digital trail she just couldn't erase. Her alibi was, well, it was a moving target. First, she claimed she wasn't even in the state. When the evidence proved she was, the story changed to 2 masked intruders. It took 2 whole years for her to finally say, okay, I did it. But then she reframed the whole thing as self-defense. And this was the smoking gun. In what was clearly a panic move, someone had thrown Travis's digital camera into the washing machine and run a full cycle. But here's the thing about digital files. They don't always go away. Investigators were able to recover the photos.
And those photos told a story that Jodi Arias couldn't talk her way out of. So what exactly did they find on that memory card?
This is just chilling. The recovered photos laid out a minute-by-minute timeline of his last moments. It starts with intimate photos of the two of them. Then there's the last photo ever taken of him alive, in the shower. And just minutes after that, accidental pictures of his body on the floor. The camera proved she was there and captured the immediate, horrifying aftermath. Okay, so with her presence at the scene a lock, the case goes to trial. And this is where it turns into an absolute showdown between 2 completely different versions of reality. So you've got the prosecution painting this picture of a scorned woman who carefully planned to murder her ex because he was moving on. But then the defense comes back and argues that no, she was a battered woman who finally snapped after he attacked her in a rage. The whole thing really came down to her state of mind, which led to this classic battle of the experts. The defense's psychologist said she was an abuse victim with PTSD, but the prosecution's expert came in and said, nope, not at all. She has borderline personality disorder and was not a victim of abuse. So who's a jury supposed to believe? Now, for first-degree murder, the prosecution had to prove she planned this. And they laid out some pretty compelling evidence. She allegedly stole the gun, she rented a car, and filled up gas cans so she wouldn't leave a paper trail. She turned off her phone to hide her location. You have to ask yourself, is that what someone who's about to act in self-defense does? So after weeks and weeks of testimony, broadcast live for the entire world to see, the trial finally reached its end. But believe me, the spectacle was far from over.
The jury was out for only about 15 hours before they came back, and the decision was unanimous. They found Jodi Arias guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. They bought the prosecution's story completely.
But the sentencing, oh my goodness, the sentencing was a whole other saga. The jury agreed the murder was cruel enough for the death penalty, but they couldn't all agree on the death penalty. So they had to get a whole new jury just for sentencing. And guess what? They also deadlocked, this time 11-1. With 2 hung juries, the judge had no choice. Death penalty was off the table, and he sentenced her to life without parole.
Look, this trial wasn't just a legal proceeding. It became a global phenomenon. It was live streamed. It was basically a daytime soap opera for the entire world. The Associated Press nailed it when they just called the whole thing a circus-like spectacle.
And a circus like that does not come cheap. By the time it was all over, the trials and the drawn-out sentencing had cost the taxpayers of Arizona an estimated $3 million. Which really leaves you with one final, kind of unsettling question. This case was nonstop entertainment for millions of people. But when a real-life tragedy gets turned into primetime entertainment, who's really paying the price for that? Is it justice, the families, the system itself? It's something to think about.